That's worthy, right?
Yes.
And we are live.
We are live. So Russ, would you be willing to start us off with prayer?
Sure. I will, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Loving God, we are thankful for the time we have had together and the additional time we're going to have together in this wonderful activity of learning and entering into the nature of these spirituals and enabling us to talk to one another with open hearts about justice and peace and inequality, which we all don't talk about enough. So I want us all to give a thank you to God for each one of us who's here, and pray that we may continue to learn from what we're doing and to perhaps learn to step forward more than we have in the past, and try to spread the appreciation we have learned from one another to other folks who would benefit very much from what we're saying and being together. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Well, I've had another great time doing my research on this hymn. And it's really funny. This is a song that we sang regularly at the parish that I came from. Because I think I've told you this before, but it was contemporary Episcopal worship. So we mostly used contemporary music, and Give Me Jesus was one that we sang regularly, especially at communion time, which I think fit perfect with communion. But I had no idea that it came from a spiritual. I thought it was, a contemporary song, but no, as I did my research, it looks like the earliest mention of it in literature is 1845. And where you find out, and this is a really good, if you're at all interested in spirituals, there's a book that was printed in 1867 called Slave Songs of the United States. And it has someone went and gathered up all of the spirituals throughout the history of slavery. And so they're in that book. And sure enough, there's mention of Give Me Jesus in this.
Author?
I didn't write the author down. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But Slave Songs of the United States, and the year is 1867. So I think with just that, you could probably find it. So here's kind of a little bit of an interesting twist. In the other songs that we've had so far, they were original. They came out of the slave community, and they were their own entity. This song has a different story. Apparently, from what they can gather, at least, some of the phrases in Give Me Jesus came out of a hymn in the Methodist hymnal. And then the slaves took those phrases and created a new song of their own using those phrases. And in particular, Give Me Jesus was a key part of that Methodist hymn. And then they added to it. And now here's what's really interesting to me. It shows you how they adapted the song to their own situation. They recreated or reinterpreted the theology of the song to fit their situation. And that just fascinated me. So when the scholars looked at the Methodist version, they noticed that the primary themes were themes of salvation and Jesus' 1,000-year reign on earth, that kind of thing. Then when the slaves got a hold of it and changed it to adapt to their own situation, the themes were more about deliverance from the earth, escaping this life, reunion with their family in heaven, and safety in Jesus' presence. And so you see how they changed the whole key message of the song to fit what their greatest needs were. And I just think that's kind of this is a unique kind of thing about this particular song, unlike some of the other ones we've studied. And the other thing that I found was that there's an African-American scholar named Bernice Johnson Reagan. And she's done a lot of work on, are you familiar with her, Martha? She has attributed at least one version of Give Me Jesus to Sojourner Truth. That Sojourner Truth probably wrote at least one version of it. And like a lot of the spirituals that I'm reading about, there are all different verses. And at any given time when it's sung, it may have 5 verses, it may have 7 verses, one verse may be taken out and another one put in. So there's sort of variety so when you go online and see all the different versions, you may see different verses, different words. And I think, Rush, you found that out when you were looking for the YouTube version. And that's just a part of the development of the spiritual. It keeps getting readapted to the situations that the African people find themselves in. So I just thought that was particularly interesting to me, that adaptation and change in the song, and yet the core of it was still there. So with that, let's listen to it now and see what you think. Wow.
What a voice.
Oh,
Hmm.
hard to even speak after that. You just the way her face lit up. Oh man.
I put a note in the chat that you
Oh.
must treat yourselves to hearing that song sung by Jesse Norman.
Oh,
It
do you
is,
know who the singer is? That one?
I don't know who she is, but she
Latoya.
did very well with it. But Jesse Norman will just, yeah.
Kelsey, did you know?
Yes, well, the video that Russ sent me said Latoya Adams.
Oh, LaToya Adams.
Yes.
With a chorale or just
Um,
a choir or where?
it was accompanied by someone, but I can't remember right now from the top, but I will post the video on YouTube. That way you have a better description of who that
Okay.
What a voice. Oh my goodness.
She's younger. She's a lot younger, but
Yeah.
she's, yeah.
When you do Jesse Norman, you better get a box of Kleenex out.
Yes, you better.
You just better have it ready.
Anything by Jesse Norman, but Jesse Norman really, that's one of her classics.
I'm going to do that as soon as we're done
Yeah.
tonight. Beautiful. Have any of you had experience with this spiritual before in your lives?
I have.
I'm
I
sure
did it
I
with-
have. I can't remember when.
I did it
where.
with the Episcopal Chorale, and I did it in high school. Naturally being in Black choruses, you're gonna
You're going to do that. Yeah.
absolutely.
Martha,
That's
what was your experience with it? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay, and now I can be heard. And in the churches that I've been affiliated with, that I've heard the song, and some of you are familiar with Holman United Methodist Church in Los Angeles. Prior to the pandemic, every year they would have a Negro spiritual concert during Black History Month. And I think they've been doing this over 50 years. And often they sing that song. And it's chilling because it's, at least what I experienced from it, is the spiritual part of wanting to be in the spirit and being with Jesus, and
Yeah.
also the hidden message also.
Yeah.
So it's powerful in that respect. Yes.
Truly. Gwen, did you ever know that song? No, huh?
no.
Okay. Well, it was sure an important part of the worship in our community, and here we were, a bunch of white people, but it was just as powerful for us, probably for different reasons, but it was just as powerful. And I think a lot of times, we had a number of people in recovery and different things, and I think, we all have things we want to escape from. We all have things where we just get rid of all that and just give me Jesus.
Right.
And that song has meaning to anyone who has any kind of struggle. So it's always one of the favorites of people. If we didn't do it often enough, we'd hear about it.
In the Black music community, well, before I came to St. John's, I was at Calvary Baptist Church, and I sang with that choir, which was in its day one of the very best black choirs in the city. But every year in September, there was a group of choirs were invited to Festival of Sacred Music, and it was held every year at Second Baptist, which is one of the very biggest Black Baptist churches in the city.
Wow.
And it was quite an honor to be invited. If you were invited, you came and sang 2 numbers. And then at the very end, a number was chosen that everybody, all the choirs got together and sang. So it would be hundreds of voices.
Wow.
And one of the conductors was chosen to lead that particular chorus at the very end. That was when I first heard about the Episcopal Chorale Society. And
Do
I
they
joined that
do-
year.
Do they ever do those kind of
Oh,
Black
absolutely.
spiritual gatherings anymore?
You know, I don't know because I've been
I've heard
at St. John since '05, and I
Yeah.
just kind of got away from it. A lot of those musicians have died out, and you know, a lot of churches are going over to the more contemporary jazzy kind of stuff, you know, whatever. But Episcopal Chorale was definitely one that kept up that kind of and whenever we traveled, I traveled with them for almost 19 years,
Are they
all over the world. They are together, but somewhat. But Chaz Cheatham, the director, lives in Atlanta now, so he's back and forward. And I don't think that they're very active very much anymore. Not like they used to be. I'm not a part of it anymore.
You know, I was just thinking as Abby said that, what a loss that he's not around to keep it moving and, you know, integrated, because it's yes, it's a wonderful group. What you describe is phenomenal. But what on Second Baptist, and Second Baptist is about a mile east of St. John's.
really?
That's right.
It's one of the historical African.
Very historic.
churches, yes.
Right.
Huh.
Mhm.
Wow.
Very large church, yes.
Mm-hmm. And there would be about at least 7 choirs invited to this
Wow, the
festival.
sound must have been fabulous.
Yeah. So they were really like handpicked ones, you know. So it was the best there was at the time, and so I was fortunate enough to sing with Calvary for a number of years in that festival, and then for years after that with the Episcopal Chorale.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's turn to our chapter and see what we can learn from that.
Can I add one more thing real quick?
Oh, sure, Russ.
You know, talk about how these words are all over. The first time I ever heard this live was in London, was in Southwark Cathedral in the city of London, and it was a boys' choir. And
Really?
it still had that same kind of power.
Yeah.
It was amazing. You could have heard a pin drop in this enormous building.
Wow. You know, there's something about surrender. You know, I mean, I think that's what it is. This song is all about just giving yourself over, you know, and there's something
it's a real heartfelt message.
powerful about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I think we all have those moments in our lives when that's what we want more than anything. We may or may not be very good at it, but we want to give ourselves. We want to turn ourselves over. And so that's what the power of in that song. It's our own longing being expressed.
And now, can I ask a question? Because we don't have kind of background in our book, but thank you, Lynn, for all the work you do on the particular spirituals. Do we know, and maybe the experience was different, you know, throughout the South. Were the slaves, were they part of they couldn't have been part of the white man's worship service.
No.
So how did they come to the whole Christian message, and how did they then come to hear these songs? I mean, these they came up with.
Made them up. Yeah.
But I guess I'm just wondering how they were introduced to the whole Christian message.
They were forced to
That's
worship.
what I wondered. Was it mandated?
They were forced to worship. The follow the Christian theology, because that was what most of the slave owners followed. You know, especially in the South, that was.
So in their own services.
Sometimes they would be part of the master's church gathering, and a lot of times they have their own. They would have a white minister would come and kind of do his thing, and then over time, Black men and sometimes women would be delivering a service, and I think it had more of the double edge when I know it did when it was coming out of the words of a Black person, because that person did the struggle.
Yeah.
but I think it's a very complex and important question, because the other side of it is, even though the master was imposing another religious or spiritual structure on a group of people, many of the slaves never accepted it.
That's right.
They continue to practice African spirituality, or taking parts of what they knew from each other and practice it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and they might sing the songs. The songs are very liberating, but it's not what they necessarily internalize.
Yeah.
And there's still segments of the African American community that kind of deal more in African spirituality.
Okay.
Large contingency in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was fluid, with the master not realizing the plantation system was giving us a tool for liberation. And that's the good side of it, yes. But we were talking about this because we were talking about water last week. And then somehow today I thought about this book that is a children's book called Crossing Chateau. And it's a story of an African-American girl and her relationship with the Native American. And the story takes place just right after the fugitive slave law was passed. And if slaves got across this river, they were free. And this little girl, this African-American girl, found out her father, or at least her father, said, "I'm going to be sold." And she ended up telling her Native American friend, who told her mother, and the Native Americans went into a ritual, which meant the women went into the water with white dresses on and candles. And when they were doing this, because it was dark, the slaves were able to cross the river as they were singing. Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
And it was kind of an Indian spiritual that was being sung. Yes.
What's the name of the book again?
It's called Crossing Chateau.
Well, how do you spell that?
BOK, capital CHITTO. And it's by Tim Tango, TINGLE.
Wow. That is awesome.
It's really a beautiful book. And I think what it does, not only does it talk about the emotional impact of slavery and the cruelty, but also empathy that the other child had, which is something we want children to develop, is empathy for each other. Yeah.
Put it in the chat, Martha, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got to get that. Got to order that for my daughter.
Interesting.
She, my daughter's a reading specialist, and she's really, books and reading are just the primary thing that she does in her class. She gets all the ones who are struggling and helps them to learn to read. And books like that are what she is always looking for, something that's inspiring.
High interest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a mystery series called with a detective called Benjamin January, and they're in New Orleans in the 1830s. And he goes one night at 1 a.m. to a gathering of slaves who've all left where they're sleeping, and they are in a situation where they have gone back to a lot of all these old rituals. And he talks about that. You probably know about this, Abby, but it was really interesting. They would gather in secret, and they would pull up a lot of practices they had brought with them that had been suppressed. And it was just fascinating.
Well, Congo Square in New Orleans was one of the better known places of worship for the practice of voodoo, especially.
Yeah, he talked. That's where he went. Yeah. Thank you.
And that was something that was a carryover from Africa.
What was the name? Where was the location?
Congo Square. It's actually now the municipal auditorium occupies that space. It's kind of it's in the Treme, before you go into the quarters.
Mm.
And yeah, they right now they are trying to decide what to do. It's a very historic building. It's where I graduated from high school.
Wow.
The municipal auditorium. It used to be the big auditorium of the city,
Oh,
and they called the municipal auditorium. Well, it became outdated because of the asbestos and all that, whatever. But the architecture and all. So there's a big kerfluffle going on in New Orleans right now about whether to refurbish that building, and that's the wish of the people. And out in the front of that auditorium is what they call Congo Square, and that was a definite ritual grounds for many who practice voodoo, including the infamous Marie Laveau, and the she was a voodoo priestess.
and then isn't there something called Santeria?
Yeah, that is that's a very, very cultic, and it's kind of encompasses some voodoo, but yeah, it's very complex.
Yeah.
I mean, I know very little about it. I think I experienced more of it when I was in Cuba, but it's a
more South American.
But it's from the slave
Haiti,
tradition. It's from the slave tradition, their spirituality.
Right.
And yeah, but it's they recognize certain spirits and give spirits names and kind of more personalities.
Oh,
And I have a couple of their dolls that I got when I was in Cuba.
When I was one of the years I visited New Orleans, right now, and I could show you my den. My den is all New Orleans. It's all pictures and artifacts of New Orleans. But one year I decided I think I'll get a voodoo doll, and I'll put it in a case, one of the shadow box, whatever. Anyway, a friend of mine was with me. You may have seen last week, my friend Ed in Palm Springs. He was with me, and there was a huge. We went to the Marie Laveau shop in the quarters, and a very small, like 12-inch doll was like maybe like $45 because it was from that shop, whatever. So we were in the French market, and we saw this huge voodoo doll. It was probably about 2 feet high, and my friend Ed who was quite a bargainer. They were selling it for like $12, and of course he's going to decide he's going to talk him down a bit, and the man said no. So after the man refused him, I said I'll buy it, and so I bought it home. But that was the worst experience of my life. I don't know if it was because in my mind we were always taught as Catholics that voodoo was not of God,
right.
That it was of the devil. But I'll tell you, I had this doll in my closet, and anytime I went anywhere near that closet, I got this eerie feeling that overcame me, and it was very spooky. And and I said, now the only thing that nowhere else except where that doll was in the closet. And so I got that out of there. I got it out of my house, and that disappeared. I don't know how the truthfulness of it, whether it was of the devil, but it's not in my house anymore.
Yeah. Nice. Well, let's go to the study now and see what we've got to offer us this week. Whoops, we're on the wrong one. We're on the wrong one, Kelsey.
113, page 113.
Yeah. There we are.
Yeah.
There we are. So we need somebody to read First Thessalonians.
I'll read.
Okay.
You remember our labor and toil, brothers and sisters. We worked night and day so that we might not burden any of you while we proclaim to you the gospel of God. You are witnesses, and God also, how pure, upright, and blameless our conduct was toward you believers. As you know, we dealt with each one of you like a father with his children, urging and encouraging you and pleading that you lead a life worthy of God, who calls you into his own kingdom and glory. We also constantly give thanks to God for this, that when you received the word of God that you heard from us, you accepted it not as a human word, but as what it really is, God's word, which is also at work in you, believers. For you, brothers and sisters, became imitators of the churches of God in Christ Jesus that are in Judea. For you suffered the same things from your own compatriots as they did from the Jews, who killed both the Lord Jesus and the prophets and drove us out. They despise God and oppose everyone by hindering us from speaking to the Gentiles so that they may be saved. Thus, they have constantly been filling up the measure of their sins, but God's wrath has overtaken them at last.
Thank you. And who will read Psalm 90?
I will.
Okay, Gwen.
Return, O Lord. How long will you tarry? Be gracious to your servants. Sanctify us by your loving kindness in the morning. So shall we rejoice and be glad all the days of our life.
And now John.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness, testified to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. John testified to him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks ahead of me because he was before me." From his fullness, we have all received grace upon grace. The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It is God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known.
Thank you. And finally, who will read the spiritual reflection for us?
I can read that.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
What is your most consistent prayer when you pray alone or in community? What are your spiritual desires? Our spiritual lives are defined by the desires of the heart. So what we desire in prayer and desire from God speak clearly about our love for God and our love for the world. This is true because our prayer reveals our sense of self, our identity, and intentions. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. prepared people for civil disobedience, he insisted that activists deepen their sense of identity and be clear about their intentions. Following his lead, I like to remind the congregation, wherever I do ministry, that they must always remember who they are and whose they are. One of the horrors of slavery was the deliberate attempt to erase the identity of the slaves. The system was designed to deprive the slaves of any love for self, for Africa, or even human freedom. The practice of dividing families is an example of this deliberate dehumanization. Depriving the slaves of a sense of self made it easier for the slave masters to justify the sinful system of slavery. Slavery demanded the total control of the Black people by reinforcing they were only worthy of slavery and better off as slaves. Great efforts were employed to misinform about life in Africa. The slave masters told the slaves that Africa was vile, uncivilized, primitive, and had nothing of value. As part of this miseducation, the slave masters taught that God had ordained that the slaves be enslaved. Because of such lies, the slaves were taught to hate freedom. Seeking their freedom was a sin against God, they were told, and they should seek to remain faithful to their masters, showing their love by working harder. In light of all this, the slaves' capacity to trust in God and maintain a faith that God desired their flourishing is beyond extraordinary. Imagine a faith in God so strong that in the midst of all the suffering and cruelty experienced, a desire for Jesus remains and deepens. The faith of the slaves must never be underestimated. Would someone else like to read? I can continue or.
In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. Would to God that we all had faith like these slaves. Many of the religious leaders in the civil rights movement attribute their courage and witness to a profound sense of having Jesus with them. Many said that their quiet prayer time with God in the morning helped shore up their courage. By desiring Jesus, they could desire justice. Many who do the work of justice and peace today discover that their courage and commitment strengthen when they can say, from the very core of their being, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You may have the whole world, give me Jesus. Oh, when I come to die, give me Jesus.
Powerful words. And that's the one thing that has struck me each week with our study is just the incredible allegiance, the loyalty of the slaves in the midst of their suffering. Because I think for many people, we would just bail. We might be bitter. We might be angry at God. We might, a lot of things, if our lives looked like theirs did. And yet it seemed that their faith deepened in the midst of the experience. Well, let's look at the spiritual reflections, and I'll read these slowly and just take some time to notice if anything resonates with you, if you have a sense of being called to any of these, or if God nudges you in another direction as I read these. So the first suggested spiritual commitment is to reread the spiritual and ask yourself, what are you seeking from God? And what do you long for? Second one, how do you prepare yourself for challenging moments in your spiritual life?
For myself, I usually do quiet contemplative prayer before anything that's kind of, maybe gives me a little anxiety or whatever that I'm preparing for.
Number 3, how do these scriptures, the ones that we just read, invite you to think differently about justice, freedom, and peace? What are the essential elements of your spiritual life? And finally, do you think you can say or pray, you may have the whole world, but give me Jesus? I was thinking with that question, what are the essential elements? That's like, when you become affiliated with an order, they ask you to write a rule of life, and you and your spiritual director work together to come up with basically the essential elements of your spiritual life. Something that, and you work through it over a period of time. But what do you have to do each day to keep you centered and keep you focused on Jesus, on God? So I was thinking that's basically what the question's asking. What's your rule of life? I also got another thought went through my mind. How do you prepare yourself for challenging moments? And I was thinking about Jesus. What did he do? Into your hands I commend my spirit. It was a surrender. It's giving over. And it's always at that time when you most want to take control. You most want to be in charge. You most want to say, forget it, God. Obviously you're not doing such a good job. Let me take over. I can do this better than you can.
I think for myself, it's Abby. One of the things that's really important to me is quiet worship. I did many years as I said in the Baptist church, and there were elements of it that I really, really enjoyed, but I didn't realize how much I missed the quiet contemplative part of worship until I came back as such to the Episcopal Church, and remembering that from Catholicism, that for me I need to just be quiet sometimes.
So good. Sometimes all those thoughts and all that noise and everything drowns out the voice of God. And yet, the opposite happened to me sometime, I think it was in the 80s, maybe. I went to it was an Episcopal conference, but it was primarily contemporary worship. And for the first time, I experienced a sense of joy in the worship because of the noise and the joyous singing and everything. I experienced a sense of joy I had never experienced. And I'd been in the church my whole life, in the Episcopal Church. So I'd had plenty of contemplative but I hadn't had any of that joyous celebration kind of life and celebration of God. So I think, we all need that balance. We all need both.
It's like when I did my Crescia, the walk, and I came back thinking, at the end of it, I came back thinking, how am I ever going back to my church quietness?
Yeah.
But both things do come together.
Yeah. It's not like you have to toss one out or it's just that we all need all of it.
I missed that, Gloria. I'm sorry, where were you going from and to?
You're muted.
You're muted.
She's still muted.
Can't hear you.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. The question, what was your question?
I didn't understand, or I didn't hear. Maybe I don't know the background to your story. So I didn't know where you were coming from and where you were coming to.
Crescia is a weekend walk with God. And during the time, there are lots of singing and uplifting messages. And just beautiful. It's like they say, you go to the top of the mountain. And so Crescia takes you the way to the top of the mountain, you get all these emotions. And then you come back down and you go to your regular quiet church. Okay. And I would say the Daughters of the King also has, Daughters of the King also has Rule of Life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was having connection problems. However, I wanted to mention to you guys, Albert McNeil Jubilee Singers.
Oh yeah, they're great. Yeah.
They are still in Los Angeles.
Oh.
And they are dedicated to the preservation of spirituals. And also, Mary, you might be interested in reading Howard Thurman's book called Deep River. It's the Negro speaks of Negro spirituals speak of life and death.
Oh.
And he gives a very scholarly look at the spirituals.
Oh, interesting.
And there was some mention of voodoo, and there's a book by Zora Neale Hurston, Tell My Horse. It's about her travels in Haiti, I believe it is, and you can get some more information about that if you're interested in that.
Thank you.
Great
But-
suggestion. Maybe would you be willing to put those in the chat room for us?
Oh yeah.
And then Kelsey can put them on our little information page.
Well, I'll send it to Kelsey, and I have
Okay.
to put it on the
That'd be
on the
perfect.
page.
Thanks.
Thank
Wow,
you.
you're a great resource for
Yeah.
I like Howard Thurman. I'm glad to know he wrote that book. I will look it up.
Oh yeah. It's a really good book.
Mm.
Well, this has been wonderful.
Do we have another session yet? We still have one more?
One more.
Good. Okay.
One more. Let's see. What is it? See what the song is. I can't wait to find out. What's the next song? See if we know
By
it.
and by and by and by.
By and by.
Yes.
I don't think I know that one. Do any of you know that one?
What day?
It
Day
would be
29. Day
29.
29. Oh, by and by and by.
29.
That's a new one. So we're going to learn something new.
I don't know this one.
Yeah.
There is another by and by, but
Yeah, that sounds familiar. The words sound familiar,
Yeah.
but
29. Oh, 29.
Yeah,
Yeah.
day 20.
Page 147.
Yeah, I have it on my Kindle. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, by and by, by and by.
Is it 27 or 29?
29.
29.
I don't know that one.
Lynn, this has been a very good series. I really have been enjoying it.
I have too. I really have,
Mhm.
Earl. I've just learned so much.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it also.
I have. I think we all have. It's really
Yeah.
good. So we had to skip
Interesting
over
to-
so many good ones, though.
Yeah,
Interesting to follow up with Thurman's book.
yeah, that would be a great follow-up.
And if you go
Whoops,
here
where'd we
to
all
our
go?
if you go
Whoops.
to the St. John's page, and click on the Lenten book study, you'll have the resources, the videos that we
Oh, great.
had.
Oh,
great.
wow.
How do we
Okay.
get there?
So you go to stjohnsla.org,
Yeah.
and then right here on these sections, the headlines,
Oh,
Oh,
you see the
Lenten book
Lenten
study.
study,
Oh,
and there's all the resources.
and there's all the resources. And I think I already added the book that Earl sent me last time. Deep
Oh,
Breathing.
thank
Oh,
you.
Yeah. And then there's also that book on Martha was speaking about trauma
Yeah,
a couple
post-traumatic.
weeks ago. And there's that book on post-traumatic slave syndrome.
yeah.
That's a very, very interesting book.
Yeah.
Because it's epigenetics. It's covers epigenetics and how the trauma is passed on through generations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. And I think that if I'm correct, this book was written by an African American who grew up in Los Angeles and teaches
Yeah.
it in Oregon now.
Yeah, Dr. Joy DeGruer.
Yeah, she's a social worker also.
Yeah.
Wow, who knew this page was here? Thank you, Kelsey.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I
Wow.
update it every week. That way we have like the videos that the hymns, the
Wow.
spirituals, and you can download the schedule here as well.
Wow,
Well,
thank you
Mm.
so much. Wow.
And thank you all of you too, because you are such a great resource. I mean, there's just a wealth of information just in this group. And it's just every week I look forward to seeing what am I going to learn this week that I didn't know. So I appreciate all of you and your contributions. Really great. Well, I thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a good week.
Yes.
And we'll see you next Thursday.
The hour goes so fast.
It does.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
It really
Bye.
does.
Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Good
you, Mother
night.
Lynn.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
everybody.
you, Earl.
Everybody.